The witch walked even closer. The group parted and she walked up to the antique clock behind them. Okay. The clock was large and had a dignified feel to it. The witch patted it and spoke.
この時計の仕掛けも、皆さんは黄金だけでなく、この島のすべてを手に入れられたのですから。
それはどういう意味かね。
第8の番までを殺人事件風に読み解いて、でも第9の番には誰も生き残れはしないと記されているわ。
どういうことだ。こいつはつまり俺たちを皆殺しにしよう。
まさかその時計は。
お察しの通りです。爆薬と連動しています。
その仕掛けを用意したのは、それとも後宮金蔵なの？
仕掛けを作ったのは、この仕掛けこそが彼の狂気。
何を言ってるのかさっぱりや。
つまり親父は爆弾を用意してて、無一文になったらいつでもきれいさっぱり自分ごと全てを。
後宮金蔵はこの島で黄金の魔女と契約し、
So her whole thing about taking them to the golden land and none would be left alive is that if no one found it in time, she would take the survivors, lead them to the gold, and then fucking click, boom.
しかし得たのは黄金だけで。
どういうことですか？まさかと。
六軒島には旧日本軍の基地跡がある。まさか。
ご検察のと、この島の地下には戦時中の旧に、そしてそこには900トン。
900トンやって。
Yeah, I feel you, Hideyoshi. That's one where you're like, God fucking damn.
そない爆発したら想像、屋敷どころかクレーターが開くっちゅうもんやで。
専門家の推定では直径 1km、 深さ数十メートル。
跡形も残らんな。
この爆弾は特別な、私が今操作した。これが起動のスイッチです。
The witch toyed with the switch on top of the part of the antique clock.
この状態で24時を迎えると爆発します。
もうすぐ20、つまり残り何時間で爆発するというのではなく、24時ぴったりにしか爆発しない時限爆弾。
いかにもうじき24時をもし爆発をお望みでしたら、このままにしておき。
バカ言ってんじゃないわよ。解除しなさい。
By this time, Kinzo was probably the only one who knew. The secret base on Norkenjima had started out as a submarine base. However, when that plan reached a standstill, it was redefined as a top-secret base for Homeland Defense. A huge plan had been drawn up to have the Army and Navy perform a pincer attack on American forces if the latter decided to land on Kujikiri Beach and press towards Tokyo. As a trump card for this massive defense maneuver, the Navy started stockpiling large quantities of explosives and fuel in absolute secrecy. And the Rokenjima base was the location of that top-secret stockpile. The buried explosives weighed 900 tons total. Also fearing that the Americans might find out about the island's secrets and seize the explosives, they set up a system for the self-destruction of the entire island. Kinzo, who knew all of this, decided not to remove this device, but to tie it in with this strange clock that could trigger such an explosion at any night at midnight. Kinzo was famous for building up his funds using a vast store of gold, and using those funds in several sink-or-swim gambles, one after another. Just what did his stockpile of gold and the 900 tons of sleeping explosives mean to him? At this point, we can only guess. Perhaps the true source of Kinzo's mad power wasn't the gold after all. If he lost a big gamble and all that he owned, he could erase this entire island from existence with this device. For the rest of his life, he must have put the gold and everything else he had on the line. Kinzo probably stared at this clock at times, sometimes flipping the activation switch and letting it tick down. Maybe whenever he came up against a troubling problem, he would hide in here and flip the switch, with the intention of blowing everything away if he didn't think of a brilliant plan before midnight came. He could gaze at this mountain of gold, listening to the clock tick towards his death as he searched for an idea. Perhaps Ushirome Kinzo's real study wasn't the one in the mansion, but this place instead.
親父らしい仕掛けだぜ。俺たち子供は親父が悩み事をするたびに、
あのお父様ならあり得る話。
この仕掛けも大爆発をお望みでしたらいつでもどうぞ。
If you desire an explosion, by all means.
誰が大爆発なんか望むんや。
半世紀も前の爆弾でしょ。本当に爆発するの？
はい、もちろん爆薬も信管も健在で試しましたから。
試した？
まさかあれか。
そうか。鎮守の社が跡形もなく消え去ったのはそういうわけか。
Oh. That summer, the shrine had disappeared completely along with the reef underneath it. The people found it odd that the waves could have wiped it out so completely no one paid it much mind. And now this piece fits perfectly into the hole that caused that strange feeling.
いかにも半世紀を経て今なお爆薬が結果は皆さんもご承知の通りです。あの程度の量であの岩礁が900トンもの爆薬があれば地図が
そんな爆弾を爆発させたら。しかし君まさか私たちと一緒に心中するつもり？
この地下貴賓室は基地跡の地下通路、それをまっすぐ進めば島の反対側、距離は約 2km。 そこまで逃げれれば爆発からも逃れられるでしょう。
爆発の直前にそこへ逃れるつもりだったのね。
そうすることも可能というだけ皆さんは信じないでしょうが、私は全てと共に心中するつもりでおりましたから。
こいつ頭がどうかしてやがる。
イカれてるのよ。
Hell yeah.
考えるだけ無駄だわ。この女は私たちがもしあるいはそこの爆弾の私たちを皆殺しにした、それだけは疑いようがないわ。
その通りです。皆さんは誰一人犠牲者を出さないという敬意を表すると同時に、私があれだけ長い時間をかけて解いた謎を、それは称えられるべきです。
私も君の潔さに敬意。君の処遇はこれから考えるが極力紳士的なものになる。
私のことは、私は皆さんを殺し自らも死ぬ覚悟をすでにしている。
The Golden Witch Beatrice solved the epitaph, reached this room, and revived. And now, new people had solved the riddle and reached this room, so her role was finished. When the epitaph's riddle was solved, Beatrice's illusion of the witch ended. Most likely no one in this room was capable of understanding her grim determination. She herself was probably the only one who understood. As long as the many selves inside of her understood, that was enough. I am one yet many. I abandon myself to the magical roulette of endless possibilities. The result? The answer is this. This is what the tarot cards known as the epitaph ceremony have shown me. Beatrice is already dead. They did not kill her. I killed her myself, in accordance with fate's command. They will never understand, for all eternity. The witch stared up at the ceiling without speaking for a while, then looked as though she'd suddenly remembered something. She grabbed at the sleeves of her dress, took out some sort of card.
そうそう、忘れていました。私に死に銭など必要は、これも皆さんにお渡しします。
キャッシュカード？
黄金の一部を現金化して、それが入っている口座です。
なるほど。黄金の魔女のまさに魔法エネルギー。
いくら入っているんだね。
でも10億以上は入っています。
10億？そりゃ確かに魔法だぜ。
そうね。それだけのお金でできないことはないでしょうからね。
And that's how she pulls everything off.
そうですね。
She can buy whatever the hell she wants. The strongest magic to counter the human's anti-magic toxin is the magic of gold.
ある意味、
Ho, ho, ho.
このカードはインゴットよりも強い力を持つかもしれませんね。
まったくだ。インゴットより現金の方が喜ばれるものだ。
どうぞ。私にはもはや不要なものですので。
The card she held out was not taken by any of them. Who would ever just hand over a card with 1 billion yen in it? The mountain of gold, the device for blowing up the island, the card with 1 billion yen. All of these surpassed their understanding. So, no one could bring themselves to take it.
気に入らないわ。
何がですか？
黄金の山を爆弾も解除します。10億のカードもどうぞ。話がうますぎてあんた 何か私たちを騙そう。
騙す気もありませんが、信じろとも言い、私は全てを差し出し、何を信じどうしようと、それはもう私の言うことを何も信じず、この場を立ち去ることさえ皆。
エヴァ、彼女が嘘を言っているとは思えん。
なんでそうだってわかるのよ。こいつの余裕が気に入らないの。まるでもう全てに勝利したかのよう。私今ふと爆弾のスイッチとかいうの、オンとオフが逆じゃん。それさっきその女は爆弾を解除すると言って、そのスイッチ、実はその時あんたは私たちに謎を解かれたんで、私たちごと全てを吹き飛ばす。
そうお思いでしたらどうぞ。あと1分で真実は時計が教えてくれます。
Oh. Oh. Like, I honestly believe she did turn it off, but now Ava's paranoia is gonna leave him in this fuck situation of like, shit, do we not?
おい、どうすんだ。今爆弾はオンなのかオフなのか。
彼女が嘘を言ってるとは思う。今が解除だ。押すべきではない。
でも気に入らない。なんでこんなに素直なのこい。なんでこうもはいどうぞはいどうぞってなるの。こいつは私たちを騙して24時になるまで時間を稼いで、私たちを道連れにするつもりだわ。
そのスイッチはオンかオフか分かる形状なの。
On the upper part of the antique clock was a metal switch that could slide right or left. Right now it was set to the left. However, there were no marks in particular on either side to tell one which was off and which was on.
おい、どっちがオフなんだ。
左が、今がオフです。
バカルドルフ、その女が正直に言うはずがないでしょ。逆よ、逆に決まって。右がオフなのよ、そうに違いない。
もう時間がないわ姉さん。
よせエヴァ、スイッチをいじるな。今がオフだ。
エヴァさん、その手を離しなさい。
今がオフだわ。もし私たちを爆弾で殺すつもりなら、彼女は
ベアトリーチェ、私を騙そうったって。
No.
5、4、3。
Okay, so Ava didn't touch it. The second hand of the clock ticked past midnight. October 4th ended, and the curtain rose on October 5th, 1986. The switch was still pointing to the left, which is words have been proven correct.
これで信用していただけ。
With a hideous sweat-covered expression, Ava snatched the cash card away from the witch's hand.
通帳と印鑑はカードだけじゃ引き出せないわよ。
暗証番号で引き出せ。8桁です。
ちょっと待ちなさい、今書くから。
Ava and Kitty both took out a pen and notepad and began writing the 8-digit number the witch told them.
これでもう私は役目をすべて終えましたので。
After saying this, the witch spun around and sat down on the bed. She wasn't even looking at the others anymore. She sat there like an empty husk which had, just as she had said, finished everything it existed to do. For a while, everyone watched the witch to see if she would remember something else and start talking. However, she said nothing else. The witch who had called herself one of the dead was now little more than a large French doll wearing a black dress. What the fuck, dude? Where are we going from here? Where are we going from here? Gold is the only physical embodiment of magic that can exist in the human world. Since ancient times, even a small bit of it could control men with its magic. In that case, how much magic power would dwell in it? If it was piled up in a mountain so high you'd have to look up to see the top.
バカ言わないでよ。山分けに決まってんでしょ。
この山の半分がまず私のもので、さらに半分を4等分するという話だったのではないかね。
The yells of the humans dancing around the gold reverberated throughout the underground room. In front of the pile of gold, they were arguing about how it should be split.
兄さん一人で謎が解けた？解けなかったでしょ？私たち兄弟4人で解いたのよ。4等分で当然でしょうが。
卑劣な黄金の分配についてはあなたたちが提案した。それを勝手に保護にするなんて。
取引できる立場だと思ってんのか？親父が死んでることを隠してるくせに。
私たちをずっと欺いてお父様の財産を私物化してきたくせに。
それをうやむやにする分も全て含めてチャラにしてフェアな話だと思うわ。
ほう、そこまで言うなら今すぐこの山を切り分けて自由に持って帰るがいい。 2.5 トン分のインゴットが入るポケットでも。それに諸君はどうやら黄金の山に惑わされて。
そらどういう意味ですか、クラウス兄さん。
このインゴットを見ての通り、刻まれているのは親父殿の刻印の打たれていないインゴットを諸君はどう換金するという。ようやく気づいたかね。確かにこの黄金の山には、しかしそれは換金を経ればの話だ。これだけの大量の刻印のない正体不明のインゴットを誰にも知られずにしかるべきレートで換金することが君たちにできるのかね。
If it was a necklace or a ring, exchanging it for cash would have been a manageable problem. However, doing that for several tons of unmarked gold that couldn't be made public would be impossible for any normal person. However, Kraus could do it. Among the several business friends that remained from Kinzo's generation, there were some who had black market ties and a lot of financial power. The billion yen tied to the cash card that the Golden Witch had held out a second ago had already been turned to cash thanks to one of Kinzo's connections. However, none of the other siblings had any connections like that. They would have to rely on Kraus to get cash for the gold.
ようやく分かって、親父殿のことを隠していたことは危うい。しかしそれを弱みにできるほど君。
その程度のこ
Of
と
course,
で
Ava goes
優
for
位
the
に
fucking
立っ
gun.
たつもり？
なんだねその銃。物騒な真似は慎みたまえ。
Yeah, like you shoot him. Who's gonna take care of the gold, Ava? Ava was gripping the gun so hard it looked like it might snap. The 4 guns that the witch had placed in the room were now in the hands of the relatives. Just as the gold had led their hearts astray, it seemed these guns had the magical power to turn their hearts to violence. Finally, a scuffle arose between Ava and Kraus. Off to the side, Nazi started arguing with Rudolph and his wife, and the grand underground VIP room was filled with thundering jeers. What are the cousins up to? After being forced to watch the scene for so long, Angie's face was starting to contort with pain. It was only natural after being shown this abusive argument between her parents and her other relatives. It was painful for Leon, too. Leon would have tried to intervene and calm them, if that had been possible. The gold isn't going anywhere, right? If you just slow down and think, you'll be able to resolve this. Going by what Ava and the others said, it's clear that they'll need a lot of money before the end of the year. However, the billion-yen cash card should be more than enough to pay for that. That would handle their emergency expenses so they could then convert the gold to cash at their leisure and then just split it amongst themselves. Sure, maybe Kraus was the only one capable of converting the gold. That might give him an advantage over the other siblings. However, this gold couldn't be dealt with by open means. In addition to attracting public attention, it would also lead to various legal problems. It was better for this secret money to remain secret. If they wanted to get the largest portions possible, then they should all agree not to tell anyone about this gold. In other words, to maximize their profits, they would all need to make a gentleman's agreement to keep this secret. Kraus did have a slight advantage. However, it was possible for the other relatives to refuse to cooperate and tell the world about the gold. And then, there was also the concealment of Kinzo's death to consider. Kraus was an investor. He needed not only financial clout, but also a certain degree of public confidence in him. His advantage isn't big enough for him to act so overbearing.
みんなあの黄金の山に、これは大人のただの子供の喧嘩だ。こんな光景を私たちに見せて、それともこれが新しい魔女の遊び。私たちが嫌そうな顔するのをどこかで眺めてて。
By now, even I didn't have a clue who was showing this to us or for what reason. At the very least, this new tale didn't seem to be overflowing with affection. At first, I thought it was a tale of a beautiful world where no crime occurred and Claire's regrets had vanished. But something's different. This tale is clearly filled with ill will towards us. I'm sure of that much now, but I don't have a clue who would want to show us this. Suddenly an explosion rang out. I didn't think it was the sound of gunfire. After all, people living a normal life never hear that kind of sound. It was the sound of thick raindrops hitting the floor. There was no rain in this underground room. It was blood dripping down from— Nazi! No! Why you gotta be Nazi? What the fuck? The bullet had gone in through her right eye towards the back of her head. You sons of bitches! The gun, which fell from Ava's grasp, landed on the floor with a hard metallic clang. As no one responds to that sound, Nazi's head slowly turned to face the ceiling. Son of a bitch. You motherfucker. Nazi flopped backwards. When the back of her head hit the floor, a red splash spread out beneath it, forming a single flower to adorn her dead face. Yeah, beat her ass, Kraus! Kraus howled, raised his gun, and ran at Ava. At the same time, Hideyoshi leapt between them. A scuffle broke out between the two men. There's nothing to get wrong there, Hideyoshi. There's nothing to get wrong. She shot her in the face. Kraus, who had just seen his wife killed before his eyes, had lost all traces of rationality in his expression. He was so furious that if he had knocked Hideyoshi aside and jumped at Eva, he might have torn her throat out. Nice! Hideyoshi, I love you, my man, but you can suck on my accident, alright? Fuck off. Don't tell the man who just watched his wife get murdered in cold blood to calm down. Another explosion rang out. Hideyoshi's face was covered with blood. The two of them had been fighting over the gun Kraus held, trying to push it away from themselves. When the barrel had turned to point at Kraus' chin, the sneering, formless Reaper, master of the Room of Gold, had swung its scythe once more. A line of blood trickled from Kraus' mouth. Let me guess, it's Nazi, Kraus, and then Rudolph and Kyrie that die because Angie and Leon are the ones watching. The two fell down, with Kraus' body on top of Hideyoshi. Letting out a cowardly cry, Hideyoshi backed away before Kraus' body could cover him. As the pair of them broke down sobbing and repeatedly claiming that it was all an accident, Rose and the others were unable to say a thing. The witch also watched the scene but said nothing. She appeared to be completely disinterested. Yeah, Rose ain't gonna fall in line anymore, huh? Who could say?
ごめんなさい。偶然暴発したのか、それを装って殺したのか、私には。
ルドルフ君、あんたは見てわかるやろな。
すまねえが、事故か恋かなんて、俺たちにはわからねえ。
Yep, Rosa's and Rudolph's gazes look very cold and indifferent to Ava and her husband.
どうするのよ。事故とかごまかせないわよ。
森や。森に行って行方不明になったとか言って時間を稼ぐや。
そんなのでごまかしきれるわ。警察が森中を捜索するわ。そもそもあの未開の森にどうして2人が出かけるのよ。水 クに不審に思われるわよ。騙し通せるわけないわ。
大丈夫や。ここに死体を隠せば誰にも見つからん。みんなで知らんぷりをすればごまかせる。
無理よ。警察をごまかせるわけない。遺産問題で揉める親族会議で兄さん、警察が簡単に行方不明で済ましてくれるわけがない。
いい案を思いついたわ。
Oh. Oh. Though Ava had been scratching at her head, overcome with emotion, her arm suddenly fell as though her strings had been cut.
何か思いついたんか。
事故に見せかければいいのよ。
She's gonna kill the rest of them, isn't she?
アホ抜かす。事故ってなんや。二人の死体にははっきり銃創が火事に見せかけて焼いたって銃で死んだとバレバレや。
火事？そんなのじゃダメ。もっともっともっと。
大きな事故。
Ava slowly walked forward, tapped it, and spoke.
爆発事故よ。死体が跡形も残らない事故が起こればいいのよ。
Oh, hey! Wow, alright. As she played with a switch that would cause an automatic explosion at midnight, Ava spun around to look at them, a crazed expression on her face. It was truly a mad flash of inspiration. If they flipped the switch to the right and waited for midnight, then 900 tons of explosives would wipe up the mansion without a trace. There wouldn't even be anything left of the corpses. There certainly wouldn't be any way to tell that they had died by gunshot wounds before the explosion.
この島に戦争中の爆薬が今、それが明日の夜偶然何かの、そう、これは事故、爆発事故。どう？絶対に警察にはこれならごまかさ。二人の死体をごまかさ。
Wow, her face is going through some emotions. Even Hideyoshi's like, hey, babe, no. Shaking, Hideyoshi frantically searched for a counter-argument, hoping to shut down Ava's mad idea. They couldn't find one. If they blew everything up, the facts would all be muddled. They could make it look as though Karasanatsu had died in an explosion accident.
完璧だわ。兄さんたちが死んだのだって事故。もう一つ事故が起こるだけの話ね。そうです。筋書きは適当にか。とにかく私たちはたまたま明日の夜、そこで偶然爆発。
Hey,
そういう筋書きにすればいいのよ。
quick question. What about your kid?
何をどういうクラウス兄さんと夏日姉さんだけを残して私たちだけが都合よく難を逃れるって一体どう？
それはこれから考えるって言ってるでしょ。バカローザ。何でもいいのよ。口裏さえ合わせれば。考えるわよ、考えてるわよ。あんたたちも考えなさいよ。誰か考えて。
落ち着くんや。わしも考える。みんな必ずうまくいくんや。お前だけに背負わせとるわけないで。大丈夫。必ずうまい言い訳が思いつくんや。
それはどんな言い訳な。クラウス兄さんと夏日姉さんの2人だけを屋敷に残してみんなで隠し屋敷で夜を過ごすといううまい言い訳があるわけ。めちゃくちゃだわ。
そのめちゃくちゃを考えるのが私。何を他人面してんのよ。あんたたちも考えてよ。考えなさいよ。
姉さん、質問するわ。島を吹き飛ばしたらこの黄金はどうなるの？私たちはやっと200億の黄金、それをみすみす吹き飛ばす。
そんなの運べばいいじゃない。運べば。
Yeah, yo, just 20 billion, yo.
爆発は明日の24時。丸々1日あるの。みんなで運べばなんとか。
10トンあるのよ。お米の袋を担ぐのもやっとのは島の反対側まで通じる長い地下道を徒歩。それこそむちゃくちゃだわ。
これカードがあるじゃない。さっきあの女から受け取った。黄金は運べるだけ運べばいい。それを別にしても3等分しても分け前は私たちの誰もがそれで十分に。
いやよ。何ここにこうして200億円の山、どうして3億ポッチで納得しなきゃいけないのよ。
Ava's face twisted in anguish and was met by Rosa's look of cold concern.
クラウス兄さんたちの取り分を私たちの取り分は1人カードの3億を抜いて残りは47億。それを姉さんが私に払えるって言うなら、この黄金の山は好きにしてくれていいわ。
あんた協力する気はないの？
姉さん、頭を冷静にして私も姉さんも最も多くのお金を手に入れる。
何よ。
素直に警察に取っ組み合いの末銃が暴発したと言って。
バカ言ってんじゃないわよ。私は嫌よ。
さすがに事件がここで起こったとは警察に黄金が見つかっちゃう。そうね、バラ亭雨が降っているから現場検証の時矛盾が発見されなくて、どういう経緯で雨のバラ庭園で銃を持った兄さんたちと自分たちの罪を隠したいからって私たちとその取り分まで巻き込まないで。
ローザ
いいじゃない。
Listen, you know it's fuck Rosa all day, but like, watch her be like, her step up and be like this vindictive evil shit and like really fucking put Ava in her place. I'm liking it.
別に何十年も食らい込むわけじゃない。だって事故なんでしょ。ほんの数年で罪を償って綺麗になって戻ってきたら姉さんの分の
いやよ、私たちが捕まったらどうなる？うちの人の会社はどうなるのよ。
別にいいじゃないか。50億もあるんだから。もう働くのもバカバカしいんじゃない？
Rosa had never intended to go along with Ava's proposal, as you shouldn't have. If it was a question of maximizing each person's portion, no one had anything to gain from an explosion accident. An explosion would conceal Karasunatsi's deaths, and it would serve no further purpose. From Rosa's perspective, the ideal outcome would be for them to confess to their crimes without any unnecessary tricks. All she wanted was to change the crime scene from here to a different place. However, Ava didn't want to be arrested. She didn't like having her share shrink from 5 billion to 300 million. But even that was more than enough to cover the amount she had been trying to wring out of Kraus in the first place. She wanted to hide what had happened here, even if it meant blowing away 4.7 billion yen. What would happen if they were arrested? The life, the company, and the trust that Ava had worked so long to build were things that couldn't be bought back with money. So she wanted to hide Karasunatsi's death, even if it meant blowing up all 4.7 billion yen worth of her gold. But from Rosa's perspective, that was just irrational nonsense.
なーに姉さん、その銃。私も暴発ということで言い訳がますます難しくなるわよ。それどころかクラウス兄さんたちのことも事故3人もの死に関わったらかなりの大事故。おそらく求刑は死刑、妥当なところで無期懲役、軽くても10年以上は食らい込みそうね。おとなしく自首しなさい。そうすれば不幸な事故がたまたま重なっ、無論ケーキだって大したこと。ジョージ君のことは安心。私たちでちゃんと面倒。姉さんの取り分の50億はきっちり手つかずで残しておいてあげるから。
Ava ground her teeth and glared. But Rosa, she knew, should have been shaking and obeying her commands. And yet, Rosa wasn't scared. Because she knows she's not in the fucking disadvantageous position here. Her blank expression, that faint smile, one that Ava had never seen before.
銃を下ろしなさいね。頭を冷やせば私の提案がさ。いいじゃない。経済行為で考えてみて。仮に10年食らうとしても釈放される。それって年収5億のお仕事ってことだ。そう思えばお勤めも楽しくなるんじゃない？
嘘だわ。あんたはその間にあんたの男がそうしたようにね。
うちの人のことは関係ないでしょ。
Okay, cat fight, let's go.
私は逃げないわよ。お金を持ち逃げなんて絶対にしないわよ。
Rosa's once frigid face was filled with rage. The two howling people pointed their guns at each other, shouting insults. You could smell the Gold Room's Reaper slinking closer. Oh god. The smell of gunpowder, the explosive smell of death, filled the room. Wait, so is this not to prove what like the ideal outcome was, but that even in like the best circumstances, that this whole game was never going to end well? Like there is no happy ending to this story. I think that's where they're going for it.